basically this late breaking story that happened last night. And I'll read it to you from Shams, and this is kind of coming from The Athletic, is that assistant John Lucas called out players at halftime versus the Nuggets, and then Kevin Porter Jr. reacted by throwing an object and leaving the arena, and Christian Wood refusing to come into the second half. Another part of this story becomes that during the heat of halftime, obviously they had some issues with each other. Woods was benched at the start of the game due to breaking a team rule. Subsequent to reporting that Wood missed a mandatory pregame COVID test, Wood played 8 minutes in the first half and did not play in the second half. Head coach Steven Silas called this a coaching decision, and that there are reports that Wood refused to play in the second half. Tyrese, I'm gonna let you start first, man. Like, this to me is
Okay.
really disheartening,
Yeah.
because I think that this was a very promising young Rockets team, with I know Christian Wood being the older of the whole group, besides obviously like Eric Gordon, and I think John Wall is still on this team, but not playing. And they kind of wanted to kind of experiment with this young roster. Coach Steven Silas, Silas wanting to kind of have his own culture, his own brand, for the Houston Rockets, and it is kind of sucked that these two have done this type of action. But Tyrese, go ahead, man. What do you make of all this?
I mean, I don't make really nothing of it. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. This guy's been having a lot of anger issues since he came into the league, and I think he had issues when he was in college too, and in high school. So I mean, it's nothing shocking. What is shocking is the Christian Wood situation. How he didn't even want to check in.
Mm-hmm.
That's really a red flag for me for the Houston Rockets organization. But as far as Kevin Porter, like, no, I'm not saying I expect it, but it's not a shocker just because of his track history. But you know, more
Mm-hmm.
concerning to me is the Christian Wood situation of him not even checking in the game, like I say, because he doesn't really have a temper issue at all, and he has no track
Yeah.
record of that. So as far as Kevin Porter Jr., I mean, I don't really make too much of it. I mean, it's Kevin Porter Jr. I mean, he's been always having, you know, anger issues and stuff. So temper issues. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I mean, I don't really make nothing too much of it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing because I know that before in a previous interview, Kevin Porter Jr. actually credited John Lucas for like his for the growth and kind of like the relationship as like one of the coaches that he can kind of go to and just be like, hey man, if something's up, that's the guy he goes to. And it's just disappointing to see that, when any time these players and Cuffs brought this up in his tweet, and I just, I want to, reiterate and echo the same sentiment. It seems like anytime these guys are challenged or pushed to, by one of their coaches, the easy scenario for this team and the easy scenario for these players is to just give up and to just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like just say it's my way or the highway. And like you said with Kevin Porter Jr., he's been suspended and kind of had these issues ever since high school. When he was at Rainier Beach, I think I can remember a lot of the coaches that I coach with talk about that with sort of the anger issues that he has, and it just continues to stem
Yeah.
from
I mean,
there.
this is
All
a guy who took food at a locker room because what's his name? Prince took his locker in or mid January last year. So,
Yeah.
this guy, he has a huge track record of just losing his cool and really take it out on individuals in the public scene. So, I mean, sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to say that, like, I'm looking at some stuff here, and yeah, he's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, it was from there, and then you see him with USC having that suspension due to
Mm-hmm.
conduct issues. I mean, it's just frustrating because I know what type of talent he is. He's a first round pick. He's a guy that really should have been in the top 10 in terms of talent, but it's the sort of
He doesn't
like
have a first round pick mindset.
yeah, I mean it's a mindset of like, oh, I'm owed this or I'm due this, and that's the thing that
Mm-hmm.
frustrates me with Kevin Porter, because I want him to succeed. I want him to be one of those great Seattle players, 'cause I think he has that type of talent to be up there as one of the greater Seattle players to ever play the sport. But if he continues this path of just anger and frustration and just like not listening to his coaches and just being, whenever he's just challenged at all, to just kind of give up or get angry and just like leave. Like he just left the arena. And to me, it's like you can be upset with your coach, you can be upset with what's going on and all this other stuff, but I just think that it's just not the right look for you leaving the arena. And I just think that he really needs to really look at himself deep in the mirror and see the people that are around Kevin Porter Jr. because I feel like there's a lot of yes men around him, and I think that he needs to be supplied with people that will challenge him and be like, dude, you need to like chill, and not ruin your bag, because these are the type of incidents that not only prevent you from getting a big contract, it prevents you from being even in the league. Like, we know how this league is, we know how these owners and GMs operate. If you have any bad publicity next to your name, or like you have a character issue like Kevin Porter Jr. apparently does, it does not spell good, because if your talent doesn't overcome those issues, the teams are not going to be willing to give you those third or fourth chances, at least in the immediate future. I mean, they might give you those like, 10 years down the line when you're like, oh shit, I've been to the top of being on the NBA roster. Now I'm, playing in Europe and I want to get back into the NBA. Teams are going to they're going to hold grudges against that stuff. So I want Kevin Porter Jr. to understand that I think that he has all the makings of being a top 50, even top 30 player in this league if he wanted to. It's just these off the court incidents that continue to pop up at just random times is what's going to cost him the chance to be even close or even in that conversation of being a top 30 player. And that's where I get frustrated as a coach who, wants the best for his players and also, wants to challenge them, but not in a way where it just demeans them, but to, think that I know that they can do better. It's just frustrating to see that they took that criticism and didn't take it in the way that everybody else normally would.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, you know, um, it's really gonna hurt his, you know, his stock as well. I mean, teams aren't gonna want to try to go for him. I mean, if he's flashing out, you
Mm-hmm.
know, over a locker, over them losing, even though they have no right in winning because they're not gonna go anywhere. So they're better off tanking anyway to get a high lottery pick at this point. But
Yeah.
that just shows his immaturity, and yeah. So I think you know a lot of teams are really looking at, if they were looking to acquire him, they're for sure not going to acquire him now. So
Yeah.
he's kind of hurting his own self more than helping anyone else on the team.
Yeah.
And it's
And no, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and as far as the Christian Wood situation, because that right there kind of opened my eyes up. Like, whoa, what the hell is going on over there? Because one thing for Kevin Porter, like, okay, it's normal for him, but then you have Christian Wood not checking in, so that's kind of like something's going on over there in Houston. Something, I don't know, some drama. I mean, there was already some drama with the owner. I think the new owner they got. So you know,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, something's going on over there deeper than Michael or Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Christian Wood thing is also concerning as well because, like you said, this is a guy that has not had any incidents like that before in his
Yeah.
career, and all of a sudden has now done something where really hurts his trade value, and really it just hurts his value as a player overall in terms of making money. And that's the thing that these players need to understand, man, is that you can have disagreements with your coaches, you can be upset with your coaches, but at the end of the day, you know this is an opportunity to make generational wealth for your family and and for everybody that's involved. And if you want to continue this path of being frustrated with the coaches, saying that you're right, the coach is always wrong, you're always right, and then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have this babyish attitude where you're throwing stuff, where you refuse to sub in the game. That to me is the biggest kind of concern going forward for
But
those two players, and especially Christian Wood, again, a guy that I think the Houston Rockets would love to be as part of their plan. But at the end of the day, if they see that you are not condoning yourself in the behavior that warrants the reaction that you got, you're out of here.
mm-hmm.
And whatever value they can get from you, they're just gonna get, and you may be on a bad team. And that's kind of the reality of Christian Wood right now. Is that I think that he needs to do some soul searching, and look himself in the mirror and just realize, that this culture of like, always getting what you want, this culture of like everything going your way all the time, is just not going to fly like in real life. And whether it's
Yeah.
the NBA or whether it's the workforce where you're working the 9 to 5, like that, and it's never always going to go your way. And that's something that I think both of these guys need to realize.
Yeah, I just think it's the newer generation too. I mean, these guys are making a shit ton of money. I mean, look at what's his name, Christian Wood making what $13 million last year. So what is he gonna make this year? Probably another 10 million or something of that. So these guys are already set up financially. And as far
Yeah.
as Kevin Porter, they're handing out contracts to young guys like hotcakes. So he's not really worried. They're not really worried about winning. Like their
Mm-hmm.
main goal, especially where I don't know where Kevin Porter's from in Seattle. I don't know if he's from like a disadvantaged environment or so-called the hood, but in his terms, he made it already. Like he can retire tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Like he's good. Like he doesn't care. I can tell he doesn't care what other people think. Same with Christian Wood. Christian Wood, a lot of people wrote him off. And what did he sign? Like that $30 million contract? He made $13 million. Like
Yeah.
he's good. Like a lot of these young players don't care, man. Like they're how they perceive. Like it's cool if they win a championship, but they don't care. They're just trying to make as much millions as they can before so that way they don't have to work a 9 to 5. They can get into investing or open up their own business, or you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
these young players don't really care about what we think if you really look at it, right?
No.
Because some of these players, man, they be doing some foolish stuff. But hey, they got a $40 million contract, $200 million contract, like Michael Porter Jr. He hasn't even played. You know what I'm saying? They're all going off highlights from high school. So like a
Yeah.
lot of these guys, they don't care how they looked at from our point of view. Like they made it already. They made $20 million. Like they can retire tomorrow and open up 4 or 5 Starbucks, and they're good for life. So
Yeah.
like I understand what you're saying. Like, they have to, especially Michael Porter Jr., like he can make so much more money if he just had his act together. But, hey, where he's coming, I know his dad went to prison and stuff like that. And, he doesn't, just hearing the story from how he grew up and, so he doesn't really care what other people think. I mean,
Mhm.
$8 million is a lot of money for him and his family, not
Yeah.
including the endorsements. And he's still young as hell. What is he like? What, 23, 22?
I think he's like
So,
21, 22. But
oh
my,
yeah,
my thing for me is that like this dude has the potential to get a super max if he, can find a
I
way
don't know
to.
about Supermax because his temperament and
Well,
Supermax money.
yeah, well, that's what I meant.
But
Like,
but you could be right though, because I mean they gave Michael Porter Jr. 200. It could get to 200 and what $5 million for 7 years, I think, and
yeah,
he had back injury, and he's out again because I think of his back, right? So I think it's his back or his ACL, something like that. But he's
back.
injured again, and if some were to go bad, he's probably going to get 75% of that money.
Yeah, and that's where my
So
that's
it's
where
like,
that's
hey,
the
never know, like you said.
yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with it, is that like, I think he has the talent of a supermax player, but if you don't control the temperament, if you don't control kind of the emotions at times that Kevin Porter Jr. seems to have a trouble of doing, like that's going to cost you, a lot of freaking money, even if you don't get the supermax, even if you're just a player that gets like, 13 to 14 million a year, like that's still a lot of generational wealth money, not just for like him, but his family. Like I don't know if he has any kids or not, or if he wants kids. But if if that's kind of the future that you want, if that's kind of what you see yourself in, a couple years, like I just think that you really need to learn how to do it, because, like I said, it's going to cost you a ton of money in the future. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I think he has all the talent in the world to be that, at least close to a max deal. But it like we talked about, if you don't control it, the
Yeah,
temperament, that's going to
it's
cost you
just
a
like in
lot.
the workforce. Hey,
Yeah.
you can be a superstar CISO, right? But
Hmm.
hey, if you don't have you know likable personalities, they're not going to pay you that $500,000 salary, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not great to the environment and the work environment in our company. So it's the same in the NBA. It's the same anywhere, like you
Yeah.
were saying. So, you know, he's messing up on generational wealth, but hey, that's him, right? But
Yeah.
he's
What
not
did
looked because what was that?
No, the only thing I was gonna say, and sorry to cut you off, I was gonna move on to more so like the Christian Wood thing, because I feel like the Christian Wood is like a different story. I feel like for him, it's like a professionalism thing. Like it's not even like
Mm-hmm.
it's not even on the same like I would say strategy, or maybe not the same level as like a Kevin Porter Jr., where his is more like his emotions, whereas Christian Wood is more like professionalism and seems to me like work ethic. Like if you don't have that, that's another thing that we can talk about too. Is that like these players, you need to have that strive to want to be better. You need that strive to like at least put in the shift, and the stuff that they ask you to do. You just got to do it. Like I
Yeah,
understand that nobody wants to really do these COVID tests anymore. Everyone's sick of them. I think everybody's sick of COVID at this point. But
yeah. But
if
hey,
that,
that's what we have to live with.
yeah, and I mean, if you're getting paid that 13 mil that Christian Wood's getting, or however much he's
Man,
getting, it's like that.
that was
That's
just annually last year. Who knows what
yeah,
he's getting this year? And that guy was written off. So it's like he doesn't care what the he doesn't care about what the Rockets are doing. Like he's trying to go somewhere else so he could probably showcase himself even more to a key contributing like a team that's really winning and higher up his value and try to get at least $100 million deal
yeah. I
because that
mean,
guy was written off.
yeah,
Nobody had
he signed a 3-year, $41 million deal. It's like
man.
it's to me, it's like you sign that big you sign that big deal, man. You can't be acting the way that he did last night. Like that's just unacceptable. Like
But
it's
that's what
just
I'm saying though. Like how old is Christian Wood? What is he like 27?
26, going to be
Yeah, see what
27
I'm
probably
saying? Like
next
he's a
year.
young dude, man. Like especially like with everything with social media and like everybody written him off. Like he got a
Yeah,
$41 million deal. Like he doesn't give a damn. Like and then
yeah,
to the team stinks. So it's like, what are you gonna do? Trade me? That would do justice. Like that's sending a message to me. He wants to get traded
yeah,
because he feels like he's wasting his talent. He's still young as hell, you know, and he can get that $100 million extension. He can get an extra 60 million if he goes somewhere else and probably plays his
yeah,
ass off like how he is now. So
yeah. I mean that's the thing. Like yeah, the 13 to 14 mil is great in the first 3 years. When you're 27, 28, but
yeah,
you don't have anything guaranteed past 30, and that to
yeah,
me is the
because
concern,
let's just be
especially.
real. Yeah, go ahead.
No, the only thing I was gonna say, it's like check your lifestyle. If your lifestyle is like you're buying all this stuff, you have a nice house,
Mm-hmm.
you have to worry about like taxes, then
Yeah,
your agent fees, and then it's like by the time if you don't have a new contract by the time you're 30 years old, like that lifestyle that you're living so far, like if you don't continue to like make that same type of money, you gotta cut costs somewhere. And I don't
yeah,
know if Christian
or
Wood wants to do that. I don't think anybody wants to do that. When you're young, you feel like you're on top of the world, but you got to be careful, man. When you're only getting 3 years guaranteed, and you haven't made, or you don't have anything guaranteed past you're 30 years old. That's a
mm-hmm.
concerning.
Yeah, but too, with so much going on with the investing space, he could be into investing. If he is, that's wonderful, right? But if he's out there like not investing his money and his money's not growing over 5 or 10 years,
Hmm.
then he's just blowing it on Rolls Royces and different stuff, and yeah, that's a problem. But for the most part, I think he would have to be a fool, to be written off like that, not under the radar, and just blow $40 million in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Uh, but hey, it could happen. I mean, a lot of these players go broke, man. Like they can have $30 million and they just spin, 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 thinking everything's going to be good. Like they can never get hurt. They get hurt. No deal again.
Hmm.
And they're
Yeah.
signing minimum deals, and they got these high expensive $14 million mansions that they have to pay off. Two, $4 or $5 million worth of cars that
Yeah.
they're financing or they have to pay off, and those cars are losing value. So yeah, man, like you're saying, like a lot of these, like I'm saying, like a lot of these young guys, man, they're not thinking of when they're 35 years old, like when you see $3 or $4 million in your bank account, like Kevin Porter, like man, you made it. Like who cares what anybody thinks to me? That's what I'm thinking he's thinking, right? Because I mean, like if he wasn't, he would be trying to play for a max deal because there's nobody on the Rockets like besides Jalen Green that can
Yeah.
really showcase himself and that they know of. But he if he how he's playing now, if he had a cool minded head, he could probably get $120 million deal with Houston. And
Yeah.
in Texas, there's no state tax. So I mean, hey, but that's on him.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the future. Like we talked about, I think both these guys have some soul searching to do, and really just have to think about like what, the ramifications of their actions are, and how they can learn from those actions to hopefully get another opportunity to kind of show that, hey, I may have messed up here, but I'm ready to kind of, make amends for what I just did, and to work my way back up. Because now it's like, now you got to work up back on the roster. You know what I mean? Like you got to, I think the coaches are, probably John Lucas, one of the most well respected guys in the NBA. He was kind of a journeyman himself. I think he was the number one overall pick in '76.
Mm-hmm.
From the research that I did, and he's a well loved, well respected man in the NBA community, and when you disrespect an OG like that, best be prepared
Yeah.
to work your way up from where you were at, and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of start from ground zero again, and that's what these two need to do, and I think that they need to swallow their pride, swallow the harsh reality of what's going to happen to them, and just kind of move on from there, and hopefully get back to where they were just a couple of weeks ago, where they were, very, I would say, at least on the same page as the coach, because I think that's what they need to do. But with that being said, let us know in the comment
Yeah.
section down below, people, what you make of this story. Are you guys surprised? Are you guys shocked? And if you are a team like the Lakers and you see this stuff happening, are you interested in training for any of these guys? I know that I'm just throwing some stuff out there, but it would be interesting to see what happens to both of those guys, as we continue to monitor the situation in Houston, as Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood have both been suspended by the team. Moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. I just think they're going to start unloading a lot of those guys like Eric Gordon, John Wall. I mean, there's a lot like Eric Gordon. I check the injury report some days, and some days he'll play, some days he's out. Like nothing completely wrong with him. So there's some going on deeper than that, and they're trying to keep their guys healthy. I think for the deadline coming up, they're going to unload a lot of those guys. It'll
Mm-hmm.
probably only be like Jalen Green, maybe Christian Wood, but I think Jalen Green's probably like the focal point. And um, the center they have, the European center they have, what's his name?
Sengun?
I forget. Yeah, what's his name? Sengu.
Yeah, Sengun.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna keep him. Probably Jalen Green. More of the guys that have a good temper, and because they just got too many young guys there who are trying to showcase themselves and trying to get that
Mm,
bag. So it yeah, they're gonna have to break a lot of those guys up. But
yeah,
I mean, if you're a team like the Lakers, for example, right, and you need some vets, they might try to go after Eric Gordon, right? Eric Gordon still, he's a little older, but he still, can get down in the cup, that fullback type of body, and you know, draw contact, shoot threes. They could go after him. There's a lot of teams out there who can use Christian Wood.
mm-hmm.
Could be the net for all we know. Could be someone like I don't know, the Sun. They got a lot of good players. It's just they're too unstructured right now to
Yeah,
do anything. With
for
no
sh-
vet. So
for sure. Um, and like we were talking about, let us know in the comment section down below whether this video becomes a little bit of a YouTube video, or if you guys are in the live chat, put us what you think in the comment section down below of this Kevin Porter Christian Wood story.